Hi, everybody. This is your old pal, Uncle Hondo. I am your Sports Illustrated Las Vegas Raiders beat writer. I'm also the host of the Las Vegas Raiders Insider Podcast. It is great to be with you all today. Happy Monday. I hope you had a terrific weekend. I hope you got to spend some time with your family or the people that you love. And if you were working, I just hope you made a lot of money and it was a great weekend for you. Um, I try to once a week just start a podcast by telling you guys how much I appreciate you, how grateful I am. We have grown so fast and so quickly, and it's all because of you guys and gals. So I just want to say thanks. Remember, you can follow me on IG at Hondo SR and on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Hondo Carpenter. We're going to dig right in today. We have so many things to talk to you about on your email. So let's go to the first one. Comes to us from Thomas. Thomas says, "Dear Hondo, I am 15 years old, and I'm curious when people in the comments make drinking game comments or whatever with your podcast videos, does that hurt your feelings?" No, no. I'm going to tell you, Thomas, Raider Nation, are there some people in it? It is 1% that are just mean spirited. And no, it's fun. That's why I don't even wear the glasses now. I don't want people getting drunk with me taking off my glasses and putting them on. But no, doesn't bother me at all, Thomas, because it's not meant as mean spirited. I promise you. I saw in your email that you don't live in Las Vegas. And if you've never been to a Raider game and never got to meet Raider Nation, they are some of the most amazing people in the entire world. See if your family, if there is a Black Hole chapter in your area, Thomas, where you can go hang out with those people. Um, but find some Raider fans. They are salt of the earth, just some of the nicest people you'll ever meet. And they love to have fun now, but they're, 1% are mean spirited. The other 99 are just terrific human beings, and you'll love them. Just trust me. You'll love them. It's worth it. All right. Next one comes us from Rand Low in Valley Center, California. What do you think about the idea of the Raiders rolling with O'Connell and Minshew this year and building out the O line and DBs? Thank you for your time, and I look forward to hearing from you. Well, first of all, I have talked about this before. Um, my opinion doesn't matter. I just try to bring to you all um the information that I gather. Now, sometimes people will say, "What do you think?" On a previous podcast, and I don't remember if it was Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, but one of them, I read a text from an executive that said that if they were the Raiders, if a quarterback that they covet isn't available, they wouldn't move up. They would solidify the offensive line, solidify the corners, ride with Aiden and Gardner and Anthony Brown, and then watch how next year goes. Uh, if Aiden takes a step forward, like a lot of people think he will, then you haven't wasted a pick on a quarterback and you've strengthened your team. If he hasn't and Gardner wasn't the guy, then it allows you in a place to go get a quarterback next year. Now, next year's quarterback class, as of this moment, talking to executives, as of this moment, is not going to look like next year's. But it doesn't mean there aren't some people on that in that draft that are going to be valuable. I'm not going to give any names right now, but there's a couple that I know of that are already on people's watch lists. Just guys that they think have a chance to be special. So you're asking my personal opinion. If they're not convinced there's a franchise quarterback, I love that way. But if they're convinced, hey, if the Raiders think, all right, 4 injuries for Penix, but we think he's past it and he's our guy, then go get him. I have no problem with that. It's their futures. And but if you're not convinced one of them is a franchise guy, you don't pick him in the first round, and I wouldn't pick him in a second. And you go do if what you feel. Rand, I have been told if you are convinced a guy's a franchise guy and you can get him in the second, you go up and get him in the bottom part of the first because then you get a fifth year option. But if you're not sure, or you think, yeah, or I think he might be, might keyword, then you take him in the second. So that's how I feel. Yes, I love that idea if you're convinced that you're not going to get a franchise guy. And I think there are franchise guys available. I don't think the Raiders at 13 can get them. And I think there's some other guys later in the draft that could be developmental guys. Okay, the next one comes from Kevin O. Dear Mr. Carpenter, I'm a Raider fan since Super Bowl II and a firm believer in offensive and defensive lines first and foremost. Do you believe that this is also AP's mindset and that RO needs will be addressed rather than looking for a quarterback? Can't help but think how much I think he means Aiden, but he says Adrian. I can't believe how much Aiden would improve with a solid line in front of him. Yeah, that I think he means Aiden. Your thoughts on this would be appreciated, Kevin O. Again, my opinion doesn't matter. I think there are franchise quarterbacks in this draft. If you're not going to get them without having to move up and pay way too much, then yes, I think if it were me, if it were me, there's 5 guys I'm looking at 13. I think they have their eyes on them at 13. And but you never know what somebody's going to do. Next, hi Hondo. Harbaugh at the owners' meeting said something contrary to what you've told us. He was asked, had he talked to his quarterback? His response was he talked about cadence and the playbook. Isn't that a violation? Ollie S. Well, first of all, Ollie, what if you didn't know what Ollie's talking about? I have referred that someone asked me in a previous podcast, what are coaches able to do in the offseason? You can give greetings. Okay. And hey, how you doing? How's the family? Whatever. You're allowed to be personable, but not football. So you don't know that Jim didn't talk to him before he signed his contract. There are lots of different ways to get around things. And so I can't comment to that, but yes, that's not supposed to be happening. Other than, a cordial, how are you? What's up? How you doing? But again, giving them the benefit of a doubt, you never know. This comes from Bob and Laura Olson. Hondo, this is Bob Olson from Black Hills, South Dakota. A possible draft strategy for the Raiders this year would be to use their top pick to fill offensive line and cornerback and make a splash at quarterback next year. What are your thoughts on Shedeur Sanders? Deion has implied that his son won't go to a crappy team, might not to move up as far in the draft next year. Just thinking, Bob and Laura Olson. Well, I just alluded to that a minute ago, but I will address Shedeur very briefly. There are a lot of people that really like Shedeur Sanders. There are a lot of people that are not big fans of Shedeur. I think the young man gets another year to develop. We're going to see what he becomes. I personally really like Deion a lot. Personally, from my interactions with him privately, away from football that had nothing to do with football, I've interacted with him on multiple occasions. I have found him to be extremely genuine, very sincere. And again, this is in events that had nothing to do with football. Very warm to my children. I think Deion is one of the most, whether you like him or not, he's one of the most genuine and sincere people that there are. So I'm not a hater of Deion Sanders. There are a lot of people that think Shedeur Sanders is a franchise quarterback. There are a lot of people who don't think that Shedeur Sanders is a franchise quarterback. I'm of the group. He's got a year left to improve and do a lot of things. So let's just wait and see and address that next year. but I thought it was important to address that. I'm not coming at this as a place of a hater. Got a lot of respect for Deion personally, and it's respect that he earned away from football at some events he and I, and particular event with my daughter and I, and some other stuff. So I respect him greatly, and I'm sure Shedeur is a wonderful kid. In fact, I've heard nothing bad about his character from people that I consider I'm close to at the University of Colorado. And that he's just a wonderful kid. They all just really like him and care about him personally, which is no surprise, being Deion's son. Deion just raises his kids that way to be really good human beings, but not ready to talk about him as a franchise quarterback yet. That will be for next year. Thanks, Bob, and thank you, Laura. Next one comes to us from Quincy T. Howard. To your knowledge, how involved or not involved has Mark Davis been in free agency and the NFL draft? Okay, so this is going to be based on this year. He certainly is informed, and he should be. I've seen people say, the owner needs to shut up and stay out of it. I totally disagree. Mark Davis owns a $6 billion business. I would be greatly concerned about him if he just stayed out of it and wasn't involved. Now, what I have said multiple times about Mark, and that I respect about Mark, is that Mark lets his football people, for the most part, be football people. Now, occasionally he will get involved and say, I want this, and they give it to him, which they should. He's the owner. I don't think that Mark Davis has been any type of a bad influence or done anything to hurt the Raiders. And let me just say something to you. I don't work for the Raiders, get paid by the Raiders. If I felt Mark had done something that hurt the franchise, I would tell you. And I haven't seen that. So no, I don't think he's been at all a negative. Next comes to us from Miguel Z. Hondo. How serious is the rumor that we, the Raiders, are really considering Michael Penix with the 13th pick? I'd be shocked if Tom Telesco pulls the trigger on Penix for his first overall pick as our GM. Also, what do you think about Jordan Travis of Florida State QB as an option with the 4th pick if he's available by then? Miguel Z. So let me tell you a couple things, Miguel. Number one, I know that everybody can't watch my podcast every day. I've talked a lot about Jordan Travis, scouting reports, so I'm not going to get into that. That would be in a past podcast, but I've addressed it at length. As far as Penix, I've talked a lot about Penix, but I will say I think the Raiders are considering him, and they're doing their due diligence, which is what you want them to do. Michael Penix is a guy that, without the injuries, is a first-round stud quarterback. With the injuries, there's a lot of concern. And the Raiders are doing exactly what they're supposed to do and doing their due diligence. So, yeah, there you go. Next, this comes to us from Brian T. Hey, Hondo, longtime follower, second-time emailer. First and foremost, I appreciate your daily pods and coverage. I'm currently 2 years deep, being sick and severely limited physically. I look forward to seeing your ugly mug every morning in your hand. It is an ugly mug. Sometimes, Brian, I just ask my wife, why? You're beautiful. Why'd you marry me? All right. Now, due to your passion for football and years covering the Raiders, could he ever expect a book on the Raiders from the best NFL beat writer? Given the talk of growth, I'm sure it has come on. I'd buy 2 copies for myself and 3 more for my kids. They don't understand Dad's passion for the Raiders, so they need a good read to understand. Keep up the great work, Brian T. Well, first of all, I do have an ugly mug. You're right. But I thank you for bringing up the subject of my book. Yes. Whenever my time is done, and I hope it's a long ways away, but whenever my time with the Raiders is done, I have kept a diary, a daily diary. When I learn things, when I talk to people, and when I am done and no longer covering the team, yes, I will be writing a book. Um, Obviously, I would never betray things that were off the record. Um, if you have to betray integrity to write a book, then I don't think the book's worth anything. What does it matter if it's got information in it um, that is not integrous? So, but I think there's a huge book. I think there's a lot of things behind the scenes that I will tell, a lot of stories that I will tell, a lot of things that will make a lot of stuff come into focus. But that'll be when I'm done. I don't think it's fair to, I would not be fair for me to write it now. If you're looking for really good books, my friend Paul Gutierrez, who writes for ESPN, wrote terrific book, and with Lincoln Kennedy in it. I apologize for not having the name right now, but it's a terrific book. Paul is just a terrific guy, just a peach of a human being, great guy, and he's very good at what he does. And I would recommend that book to you for sure. But yes, I'm going to have one that goes way behind the scenes, that brings a lot of things out, starting with the day that they moved to Vegas and for as long as I get to go. Thank you for the question, Brian. Next question comes to me from Jesse C. So for my question, and main concern with the Raiders moving forward is Luke Getsy. How is there not more concern about his lack of experience and success? I wish nothing more for him to succeed, but I have my doubts and concerns. Do you think, with all the experience and knowledge brought in the building, that they plan and will help assist Luke at a better game plan and scheme? I'm very excited about this season, but that's the one thing holding me back. I hope to get your answer while listening to your next podcast. God bless you, sir. Take care. Go Raiders, Jesse C. Jesse, I've addressed this at length in my podcast. So I would suggest that you go back to when Luke got hired, and I do extensive podcasts on Luke's background, Luke's history, why he got hired, why. Means there's some comments in your email that I take umbrage with. That I think you have to remember, people have bosses. Remember, there were people that were saying Patrick Graham was trash when the Raiders hired him. I know, because I got a ton of hate mail when I said this guy should be a head coach, one of the best coaches in the NFL. And we got people from the New York Giants to come on my podcast and talk about he was doing what he was told. So I would suggest you go back and watch that. But I think it's reasonable to say, okay, let's watch and see with Luke Getsy. I do. But I know what he did, in his career prior to the Bears. I know what happened at the Bears. And I think you have to trust AP. If AP is willing to trust his future on him, and you like AP, I think you roll with that. But I'd suggest you go back and watch those podcasts. Next, from George C. Hondo, since it's doubtful that we'll trade up for a top-tier quarterback, I don't include me in that. Maybe you and the Raiders are in that, but while it's doubtful, and I don't mean that because I wouldn't. I mean that I'm reading out of your voice, because anytime I read that, people go, oh, see, Hondo's a fan. No, not a fan. Oh, that's part of the drinking game, too. Every time I say that, let's take a drink. Sorry. Hondo, since it's doubtful that we'll trade up for a top-tier quarterback, can you detail the attributes of several alternatives in later rounds? For example, Michael Pratt, Jordan Travis, or do you believe they would be wasted picks? Again, you can go back and watch my assessment of Jordan Travis. I think there are several quarterbacks, and I will be talking about them as we get closer to the draft, in this draft who are potential guys. I've talked a lot about Spencer Rattler. There's a lot. I've talked about Jordan Travis. I will talk about others. I've talked a lot about Caleb. I've talked a lot about Drake. I've talked a lot about Jaden. I've talked a lot about JJ, Bo, and Penix. Those 6. I've talked a lot about Spencer Rattler. That's 7. And Jordan Travis is 8. So I'll be talking about more quarterbacks as the draft gets closer. It won't be those 8, though, however. So, yes, I will be talking more about it. Lawrence P. Hondo, I am sick of you, quote unquote, reporting how risky top tier 10 quarterbacks are. That is such a joke. Can you even name 2 or more who failed in modern football? Your Raiders hate is a joke, Lawrence P. Sure. I'll just give you a few. I'm not going to give them all to you that have failed. Just a few. Tim Couch, Jamarcus Russell, Zach Wilson, Ryan Leaf, Rick Meyer, Trey Lance, Sam Darnold, Blake Bortles, Joey Harrington, Keely Smith, Heath Schuler, Andre Ware, David Klingler, Jake Locker, Josh Rosen, Blaine Gabbert, and Matt Leinart. But I won't give them all. I just give you a few. Just a couple. To wet your whistle. All right, everybody. Make sure you email me, Spartan Nation Mail, MAIL at yahoo.com. You need to include Raiders Q&A in the subject line. I can't tell you the amount of emails that come in from people that aren't questions. It's just opinions. Bam, it just goes to spam. And I don't get to see your emails again. And remember, some of you need to really pay attention to this. 1 email a week. 1. If you do more than that, it's too much spam. We get too much email, and it's not fair to others that we let a few monopolize it. And we won't do that. So we want everybody to get their chance to get in. Thank you all for watching, listening, subscribing, joining, sharing, all that you do. Appreciate you. Have a great, it's a Monday. Do you know how many people get up? Oh, it's Monday. I love Mondays. My dad raised his boys. He'd always tell us, man, Mondays are the best day. Because in business, your competition is getting up not wanting to go to work because it's Monday. You get up wanting to go to work. There's more deals, there's more opportunities, and you're the one ready with the right mindset. So attack Mondays, man. I love Mondays. Love them. You should too. So from all of us here at the Las Vegas Raiders Insider Podcast, thanks for watching today. God bless you, everybody. Have a good one.